Yo, all right, third episode. We are rolling right now with 6 feet of separation. We have the very beautiful and humble and sweet Koreen Odiney. I just learned how to pronounce that like 2 seconds
Nice, you
ago.
did it.
Um, Welcome to my new thing. The whole point of this thing is I told you is to highlight people that I think are doing something really good in the world and just contributing something and doing more than they have to or need to, and in a positive way, and want to bring people closer together in that way. And you've been doing that for a couple years with We're Not Really Strangers,
Thank you.
which you started, what, like, how long ago did you start it? Like 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago was when the idea started like materializing more. And now it officially launched November 2018, but it was years
Woo!
of that in the making.
So I've been trying to highlight you for a while because I love what you've done. The organization We're Not Really Strangers, and it's a card game that you play. And what made you want to start this and tell people what exactly it is?
Yeah, so it's a card game and movement all about empowering meaningful connections with others. That's how I describe it. And it started from me photographing and interviewing strangers, which I started doing at like 14 years old. I was in yearbook in middle school, and after that I just kept doing it, and that was like my fun. Even in high school during like lunch and nutrition, that's what I would do. I would like go around and photograph random kids, and people were like, who, like, what does she do? Like,
Who's
why
this
doesn't she have
weirdo?
friends? Like, I had friends, but like I wasn't, like you have those people you sit with all the time, and I was kind of more like a loner with my camera. And as I got older, it just was something I always kept doing. And anytime I had, like, at 16, I had my first real heartbreak. And the way that I was able to get through it was I would go out on Ventura Boulevard and ask strangers as they walked by if they ever got over their first loves. And through their answers, it kind of helped me gain perspective. And I just got hooked on that feeling of connection. And I just kept doing that for years and years and years, and felt kind of shitty about myself at a point where I knew I loved doing this thing, but I didn't have anything to show for it, if that makes sense. It was just this
Right.
idea, this love I had for connecting with people, but nothing tangible.
And it made you
And
feel good, clearly.
yeah, it made me feel better, and I loved it. And then a very random serendipitous day, I met this guy who was just a stranger in downtown LA. And after our interview, because I photographed and interviewed him, and after that he told me I would write a book one day and it would be called We're Not Really Strangers. And that's where the name
Wow.
originated, was from a random stranger I met. And I took that name, and for a long time I still didn't know what to do with it. But over time, and actually Brandon, our mutual friend, had a big influence on how that idea and that name transitioned into a card game. But that's kind of the origin story of it.
Wow. And then at what point was it that did it start as an Instagram
No,
account, or did it
no,
start?
no, it started as this idea, and then it
Yeah,
turned to like, okay, I got this name, and now I want
yeah,
to
you
turn
got
it
the
into
name.
something real. And the idea was to gamify the experience of making meaningful connections with others. That was the idea that
So
popped
the
in my
game
head.
was first.
The game was way, way first.
Okay.
And as the game got developed over the years and all of that, I realized as I kind of started getting closer to the finish line of launching, which I was terrified to do, I realized I wanted to have some sort of platform to promote the product. But I didn't have like friends with massive followings or anything like that. I didn't want to like partner with an influencer. I just wanted to figure out, how do I build a community online? So I started curating other people's artwork to promote the why rather than the what of the idea. So instead of posting product images of the game, I would post art that talked about the themes of the game. And then that
What
started
are
kind
the themes of the game? Like, how do you play it?
Yeah, so the themes of the game is just essentially you're creating a meaningful connection with someone,
Yeah.
and it's broken up into 3 levels. And level 1 is perception, which is all about like how we view one another on the surface. So if I were like, I would pull a card that says like, what do my shoes tell you about me? Or what was your first impression of me? Do you think I fall in love easily? Why or why not? And the whole idea behind that is like, when we meet each other for the first time, or even when you know someone for a while, we kind of create these assumptions about one another based on external, or even just our assumptions that we just make. But we don't usually challenge those assumptions. So that's what level 1 is all
Hmm.
about, is like, how do you see me? How do I see you? And like, let's dig into
How do
that.
we break that? kind of that stigma that we all kind of create immediately when we come upon someone, whether it's from our own insecurities or uh, judgment that we didn't
Yeah,
realize that we were giving off immediately. So
exactly.
I should probably preface by saying that I actually have played this game.
Oh,
It's how we met in the first place. I came with a mutual friend of ours, Hassan Piker, years ago to Soho House, where you
uh-huh.
did an event for this game. And that's why I wasn't sure
Oh,
how it
yes,
started.
it's an event.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Cool.
And I didn't know what I was walking into. I thought I was just walking into a normal party. And I remember immediately you walk into this room, just for everybody to know what this game is like, if it is for an event.
Mhm.
Uh, I walked into a room and I was immediately put in a partnership with like a person that I didn't know. And we
Mhm.
just had to start talking. And on the wall, there was a list of different questions that we could ask each other. It was, to make it a little less awkward, I assume at first, but some
Yeah.
of them were really deep. And I got to know somebody that it was a girl. Man, now I can't remember her name. It was 3.5 years ago, but it was one of the deepest and most interesting conversations that I had with a stranger, um,
Wow.
like immediately. And she told me her whole backstory, which I would have never expected. And it's what I'm all about, trying to like appreciate people on a different level and understand why and what they do and how they do it and where they come from. And you literally turn that into a game.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. It
so
makes me so happy to hear that you, even though you don't remember her name, you do remember the feeling of that experience and you remember her story, which is really the biggest part of a person. You know what I mean? So that's so
yeah,
cool.
that's what's more important, right? It's like now I've had that experience. Now you're giving people a chance to experience what it's like to take your judgment, your immediate judgment, and immediately transform it into empathy.
That's
That's
the
like
goal.
that's a very rare thing.
That's the goal. And that makes me so it's such a flashback to like I used to do those events at Soho House, and that was right way before the game was even out. It was just more like getting the idea out there and getting feedback and testing it out. So
And that
yeah.
was when I thought it would be such a good idea to do something. I mean, to take your game and use it for all these different things right now that we can't do because people cannot socialize in person. But anyway,
Do you have a physical game?
you said what?
Do you have the physical game? Because
No,
if
I
not, I
need
need
it.
to get you one. I'll send one
Yes,
over to you.
please. I would love to play it. I have roommates, and we need to not hate each other, so
Yeah.
we're
We
good.
can help with that.
But no,
Cool.
I would love the game, and then I could actually promote it and know what I'm talking about instead of asking you all the questions. But I do have more questions for you because I want
Yeah.
to know. Um, I want to know how you transitioned from what you were doing before. You were modeling, right?
Mhm.
For a long time. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
beautiful girl, and I know you've been doing this since high school, but was it the moment that the stranger came up to you that you decided to really make it a real thing, or was it, how did that happen?
It took so long. Like it wasn't like a moment really, but because I was modeling right after high school, I was actually scouted at a Starbucks with my camera because I was photographing strangers on Fairfax. So that day I got scouted by this woman, Elizabeth. And then I just signed to LA Models like a couple of weeks later. And then that was it.
Wow.
Like I was even deferring enrollment that year to NYU for photography at Tisch. I couldn't afford it though. So I was deferring to see like what would happen, like what can I figure out this year. Then I ended up just revoking admission and started to model. And and that was really great because it gave me independence. I was able to just kind of rely on myself, and I was still taking photos on the side though. And I never like the thing about modeling too is it's great and I still do it when I can, and more so when it incorporates We're Not Really Strangers. That's
Mhm.
like the new route now, but I never felt like I was in my element. Like I never felt like beautiful modeling either. Like I always felt like my most beautiful when I would go out and like photograph people or like work on something I was passionate about, versus when I modeled, I often like didn't really feel my prettiest at all. I felt like ugly most of the time, which I think is just a testament to like doing what you love. Like when you're, for me at least, like I feel my best when I'm doing something I'm passionate about. But with modeling, it actually empowered me and like helped me fund We're Not Really Strangers at the beginning, because I had to make prototypes, I had to find a manufacturer, I had to hire someone to help me create the box itself. And so it was actually a great gift that allowed me to create We're Not Really Strangers in the long run.
Wow.
um Yeah.
and and I mean, I'm speaking for you, but I'm aware that modeling can be kind of a, it can be hard to put yourself, like, get yourself across, your personality, and people judge models, right? I mean, you guys are, you're out there and you're posing and you're beautiful, and now everyone's an Instagram model, but the real ones even get, I'm sure you like had people size you up before and stuff like that. And what a, did did any of your career in modeling have anything to do with wanting to show yourself through the game, kind of let people get a chance to know you personally, because clearly modeling isn't who you are, it's just what you were doing?
Yeah, I think with modeling, it is a lot, like, and that's why I admire, I personally, even as I was modeling, I was photographing a lot of my friends who, in
Mhm.
my opinion, are just like these insanely talented models, and they're in their element when they do it and they're passionate about it. And as I would photograph them, I was like, wow, this is what it's about. And I don't have that, and I don't even want to have that. Like, that's not my thing, you know? So I think for me, it was less about like the fact that modeling was just kind of inherently bad or anything. It was more like, oh, this is just not the thing that lights me up. And even more than like wanting to get my personal story across, I just loved the behind the scenes. So like even on the last modeling shoot I did, which was probably like 5 months ago. I don't remember when it was like the last time I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on We're Not Really Strangers. It was around like 5 or 6 months ago. I remember being in the chair and the photographer was shooting me, and it was a company I was like obsessed with. It was for Glossier. And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And she was shooting me and I was like, whoa, this set's amazing. And like, I was just sitting in my chair and everyone was like hovering around the computer screen. And I just had the impulse to be like, oh, let me look and give my input. And they're like, honey, can you like sit in the chair and like not like, can you just, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm modeling right now. Like I'm not, but I love like being in it and like choosing you know what I mean? Having more creative say. And
Right.
that's the thing that like makes me so excited, is making things versus being like the, what do you call it? Like
Face of it. No, you're executive producer, not just the face of things.
Yeah, I like to make it like, I want to be a part of the making process. And I think as a model you are, but I just like being more behind the scenes. I think I always have. That's why I've loved photography and all that. So, but yeah, modeling is amazing, and it's helped me create winners actually. And even the day that I met that stranger, I was on a modeling job and was walking to my car. So without modeling, this
Wow.
wouldn't have happened. And I'm still like in this new chapter of my life, I'm very open to continue modeling, but I want it to be of service of the greater idea of We're Not Really Strangers. So now that's like the new chapter.
Hell yeah. Okay, so I want to get back a little bit to We're Not the actual game.
Yeah,
Uh,
I started like really looking into people. They've been sending their testimonials in, and literally last night, like via DM, and last night I was just like reading them and got teary-eyed. And like that happens to me all the time. Just like hearing the stories from people playing the game is like the craziest, wildest. It's so surreal, because I think especially because of one, how long the game took to materialize, but also like I've had those experiences with the game, and I only thought I'd be having those experiences with the game, or like my closest friends, but I never thought that someone I didn't know would be having that. And like I always, the biggest fear too when I put the game out was like I felt I had to be in the room explaining the game for anyone to like enjoy it or for it to make sense. And my biggest fear in like launching it was that people would be like, how does this work? Or like, this is stupid. Or like, it wouldn't work unless I was explaining it. So the
mhm.
fact that it can live on its own and just have a life of its own beyond me explaining, I don't know, the whole thing is just very surreal to me.
I love how out of the spotlight you choose to be. You really, it's so nice to see somebody who doesn't want the spotlight on them. They genuinely want to do something good and not make it about them. And that's actually something to be said for that, because a lot of people do, even good things that they choose to do. I know plenty of people that will preach one thing, but it's really about them feeling better about themselves. And you don't do that at all. You really just want to get the information out there.
Well, that's sweet. I mean, to be honest though, like it's still, I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm so selfless and great. And I don't want,
Of
like,
course,
I
of
still of
course.
course, appreciate like hearing great things. And like this interview, for example, I just personally like, and it's not even selfless because it's technically selfish because I love it so much. I get the joy out of you know what I mean, this thing
Right.
out there. And that's just the way that I get excited. I love, like I said, being behind the scenes making things. And I'm actually like, I actually admire people who are able to be more like this interview, for example. I was like super nervous about like anything on camera. Like I got really, really nervous. Same with
Really?
public speaking, like anything like that. I have to like really get myself ready for. And I really admire people who are able to do that well naturally and kind of have more of it in them to be like putting themselves out there. So I actually admire it a lot in others. And I'm trying to work on being better at that. But I just think the most fun is, like I keep saying over and over, is just making things.
Well, you're great at it. You can't even tell that, you know, it's a nervous thing for you. What was I going to ask you? Oh, yeah. So how did you come up with the questions for the game?
That was just years and years of development. I like through photography, I just learned how questions are an art form, and I became obsessed with questions as an art form. Like that idea became really interesting to me, because when you're out photographing people, like you don't have a lot of time with someone who you don't know, so you have to get to the point and you have to make it count very quickly. So I started accumulating over time, like questions I liked asking strangers that would
Mhm.
create some sort of response. And I remember once, and I remember like the origin of a lot of the questions in the game. Like I remember I was on the couch with this woman, Rachel, my best friend's aunt, and she told me, she's like, you should start asking people, what is your father's name, and tell me one thing about him. And
Mhm.
she's like, let me ask you that. And she asked me it, and I immediately started crying because that's a weighted question for me. And I was like, wow, like that is so mind blowing that the way you phrase a question can like create such emotion within someone versus just be like, oh, so tell me about your dad. It's like,
Right.
okay. Versus what is your father's name and tell me one thing about him. Like that creative restriction within the
Right.
question
Yeah.
creates
It's not
something.
so open-ended.
So yeah, that's the thing too with questions, like being specific is really important. So instead of being like, tell me what like love feels like, it's like, how do you describe the feeling of being in love in one word? Like anytime you're able to kind of create constraints around it, it to me gets a more interesting answer for people. So when she told me that question though, I immediately went out and I asked someone out on the streets who was a homeless man, and he immediately started crying, and he was like, thank you for asking me that. I haven't cried in so long. And like it felt good for him to cry.
Wow.
And he was telling me the difference between his like dad and his father. So like his biological father he doesn't have a relationship with, but his dad he does have a relationship with. And it was just such a beautiful
Wow.
moment. And that this was again years ago, but it just stood out to me. And over time I kept thinking of more questions, or I would meet someone. Like I remember a random stranger told me, like when I was telling him about the game, because I would talk to about the game to everyone I came in contact with, he was like, oh, you should put in the question, have you ever told someone I love you but didn't mean it? And I was like, whoa, like that's insane. I've never heard that question before. And then he also added, what's the last thing you lied to your mother about and why? And I was like, that's really so.
Wow.
I think over time I was writing them and then testing them out. And it's a lot of another way that I like testing out if a question is good is I'll ask it to my friends. So like, do you like this phrasing? It's like, okay, let's ask it to each other. And if we're not able to like, if a response doesn't come immediately, or at least a feeling, then we're like, that's not it. We have to go back to the drawing board. So it was just years and years of trying it out on strangers, playing with friends, collecting questions through random interactions. And that's how it
Yeah. Do people submit question ideas to you? I mean, your Instagram has quite the following. The We're Not Really Strangers one. Do people like offer their help for questions and like ideas?
You know, it's funny. It's not so much for questions, but we do. So with the Instagram art, like I said, originally it was me curating images,
Mhm.
and then it transitioned into me making original artwork. And what the way I do the artwork is I'll photograph a surface, like a wall or whatever, and I'll Photoshop it, and then I'll put my quote on it. And a
Mhm.
lot of people submit like their surfaces, so like they'll take pictures of doors for me or walls. So like that happens a lot, and I think that's the sweetest thing. And also like friends in my life will be like, oh, like you could use this, or like my boyfriend does it, and it's like warms my heart.
Oh, that's
It's really
awesome.
sweet. Yeah.
What it seems like a really organic way to start something that clearly has that people were missing, like just like these feelings that get brought up from your childhood or even trauma or even things that you don't take a moment ever to appreciate or consider in your life that
Mhm.
really bring out some deep emotion that like it's important for people to feel and let out sometimes because we hold so much in, and we're always go, 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 go. It's, I mean,
It's
even
so
me
true.
personally, it's like, I remember I got something, I mean, I got a lot out of We're Not Really Strangers the first time, so much so that I wanted to partner with you and try to all these different new ideas for live shows and stuff. But my mom played me a video of when I was like 13 years old trying to play guitar and like
Aw.
talking and singing into the phone, and she like walks into the room and asks what I'm doing, and that kind of struck an emotion. And it's those kind of things in life um, that we need more of, or that we want to feel, that like remind us that we're human. I guess I don't know. I'm going on a
How old were you
tangent.
when you first started playing guitar?
I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow. That's so crazy. But yeah,
Started
no,
teaching
that's so
myself in the
true.
garage.
That's so true. And I felt like I was missing it. Like a big part of why I made it is because I felt like I would go out and photograph people and those interactions were so deep and meaningful. But a lot of times in my own personal relationships, I was like, I'm too afraid to go there. So I had
Yeah,
to create something that helped. Like it was very much for me. I was building something for myself and my friends who had similar issues, especially around dating. So we're like, yeah, let's like, a friend would come over after a bad date and be like, oh, I wish you would, like, you should ask like this question. Like, I want an excuse to say this. We're like, okay, we're adding this to the game. And, it was just all out of something
self-therapeutic a little bit.
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Um, has anything unexpected come out of having started this? I mean, did you, I'm sure you never saw it growing as much as it has, but it,
No way. No.
yeah,
Even
I can
funny,
imagine.
like, I was just saying this to my boyfriend is like when I sit back and reflect, or like, even when you say that question, or like, oh, like I mean, you didn't expect it to. I'm like, it feels fake. Like it feels like a joke in a way. Like it's not really like anything. I don't know how to articulate that feeling at all, but it just doesn't feel like this is real in a way. You know what I
Right,
mean? So I didn't expect any of it. I didn't expect anyone to care about the game at all. I didn't expect it to make sense to people. I didn't expect any of it. I wanted it and I hoped for it, but I didn't expect it. And so much so that it feels very surreal. Even hearing you say like, oh, it's so, I'm like, what?
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because even
You know?
now, like, I don't feel like I've made it in music. So when people talk to me as if I have, I don't know how to respond.
That's it. Okay, wait. Let me ask you a follow up to that though. Like, what does it mean to make it in music? Because to me, when I view you, I'm like, I listen to all your songs on repeat. You're incredible. You're talented. What does it mean to have made it for you?
I guess I just never had a vision of what that was. So I
Mhm.
don't, there's no like check. I mean, there's little checkpoints, I guess, like when you get to do really cool things that you never thought you would do or meet really cool people. But like, I never saw the end result in my imagination. So every step of the way, I'm like, oh, is this it? Is this where it is? Oh no, I guess not, because other, and you compare it to other people too. You
Oh
just
yeah.
can't help it. I'm
Oh
like, all
yeah.
right, like I've made it to a point where like you're a huge fan, and I love that, and people listen to the music,
Yeah.
and shows are going on, but then I look at like G-Eazy's Instagram, and I'm like, no, that dude has made it.
That
Yeah,
is so, and I bet you he looks at someone else and is like,
100%.
and that's so that like is so interesting to me, that idea. Because it like, do you ever, I wonder like who feels like they've made it? I don't like, I wonder, does G-Eazy feel like he's made it? I don't know. Someone like
Yeah,
Jay-Z must feel like he's made it, right?
I think there's always someone to compare yourself to, and so it's just. But even if you're not comparing yourself to somebody else, how do you know that this is it? Like
You know
this
what's
is it.
interesting too is it like makes me think that, like, at least for myself, I'll speak for myself. It's like, is that when I say I've made it, is that just like my ego wanting more attention? Is that like my ego wanting more validation versus like if one person says to me like, oh, the game has made a real impact on my life, and like what's be like, I guess you want to do that for more people, but that alone is like when you really grasp what
Yeah,
that
that's it.
like
That's
think
it.
about like one like your song like I remember like your song Bella, for example, is one of my favorite songs. So like I would listen to that all the time and drive around listening to it, and like the feelings that gave me and like all of that and the things it inspired without even me realizing it. And like think about how many people that's happened to with all your songs. Like that's, you're changing lives, and it's like what more be, you know what I mean? Like that's huge in itself when you really think about it.
Well, I guess we're doing something right here. Okay, so now with COVID-19,
Yeah.
possibly changing the way that we live for a very, very long time and how we communicate. How has that, or how are you feeling about it? Are you optimistic about where the game can be taken now, with more people staying at home? What do you see the future as for your game, and where you're going to take it?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to answer like what I think the future will be. I have no idea. I don't know what the
You don't
future
know?
is. No, I don't know,
No,
unfortunately.
you didn't see all this coming?
No, I did not. It's funny because like I remember right before lockdown, like the official lockdown, my friends and I were all at dinner and we were like, this will not happen to LA. We were so like delusional
Yeah, same.
about what this would be, and like, and it made me realize after the fact, I was like, wow, like it really like made me realize how invincible I am and how invincible we are, you know, like there's nothing holding us back from a moment like this, you know. It's, but so to answer your question though, is I don't obviously know the future, but I try my best to like focus day by day. And with We're Not Really Strangers, the thing I always try to do is like, how am I providing value today in any way? Like we put out a free digital expansion pack for quarantine a few weeks ago, which I see a lot of people playing that. I see a lot of people playing on Zoom with the game itself. So that's been really amazing. And my main thing is every day when I start working or start thinking about the next creative thing is what value is it, like how can I provide value today, whether it's through our post or anything else. That's what I focus on every day, and that helps me get a little less fearful of the future and the uncertainty of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Great
yeah.
answer. Okay, wait, I'm trying to think if I have. Oh, you know what? We'll just do a couple. Just because it's fun and like people like to know, especially if they like someone, they like to know even little fluff things like, are
Okay.
you watching any Netflix shows?
Yeah, I love those questions. I want to
Okay.
hear your answers to that too. I need recommendations.
Do you? Okay. All right. All right. Well, I haven't been watching that much stuff, but
Me neither. Yeah. Let me think what I. Well, I'll hear your question first. And
all right. Let me think. Oh wait, actually, first of all, can you tell people how they can order the game?
Yeah, so you can order the game on our website, Not Really Strangers, or we're not really strangers.com.
You got a life hack that you can offer?
A life hack? Well,
It's fine if you know.
well, there's something that like I really got a lot of value of when I was younger, and I wish I watched it more now. But for people I know, like outside of college classes, and they're doing a lot of Zoom classes and all that, or even if you're not, I was always shocked at how many really incredible college courses were on YouTube, like from Harvard and Stanford and Yale. Like there are full classes filmed really well with good audio on
Really?
a lot of different topics. And I got a lot of value out of like two in particular that have helped me a lot in what I do now. And those are free on YouTube. So that if you want to just enrich your mind and go to Yale or Harvard during this time, you can, and you can take an entire course for free.
How have I never heard of that
You've
before?
never heard of, I thought you would for sure have heard of this, but yeah, it's really great.
So I could basically take classes from an Ivy League school
Oh yeah.
for free on YouTube.
And that's been around. I was in high school watching, like I heard about that in high school, and it like blew my mind.
Wow, I feel
Yeah.
foolish. But that is literally exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And there's two really, if you're interested in things, like for me, I really like humans and like the study of humans and like what we do and why we do it. So the two that I would recommend for anyone who's into that kind of topic is there's a human behavioral biology class on Stanford by Robert Sapolsky, and it's incredible. And then there's an ethics by Michael Sandel at Harvard. And those two together like are my dream courses, and they're, like I said, online for free. And Michael Sandel, he talks about like like should cigarettes be allowed, and like the ethics behind cost benefit analysis when it comes to life, which is very relevant to right now when we're thinking about going back outside and all of that. So highly recommend that if you're
Wow.
into that.
That sounds super interesting. I'm definitely going to look it up. Anyway, thank you so much. We're Not Really Strangers. If you guys want to download the game, it's on we're not really strangers.com, and just rewind the video if you want to see the college courses that she was talking about for free on YouTube. And guys, get to know each other a little better. It's scary, but it's a good thing. All right, cool. Yeah, we did it. That was it.